Jacob Zuma, as we've just said, there is refusing to appear before the Zondo Commission, citing unfair treatment. He has also said he's not afraid of going to prison. The Commission says Zuma considers himself above the law and the Constitution. It says Zuma continues to enjoy the benefits of a former president. For more reaction, here's Lawson Naidu from the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. How damaging is Zuma's refusal to appear before the Zondo Commission for our Constitution, and exactly why?
Good afternoon. Yes, the stance taken by Mr. Zuma to openly defy an order of the Constitutional Court requiring him to attend the Commission of Inquiry and answer questions is very concerning, because Mr. Zuma is suggesting that he is above the law. And in fact, in its judgment last week, the Constitutional Court said very clearly that nobody is above the law, and that Mr. Zuma has treated the Commission generally in a contemptuous manner. And here he is, violating the order of the court and subjecting himself to being held in contempt of court in legal proceedings thereafter. So, this is something that cannot be tolerated in a democracy. We are a constitutional democracy based on respect for the rule of law, which means that everyone must respect the law and take the consequences of their unlawful conduct, including former presidents like Mr. Zuma.
In his defense of that decision, Zuma has made attacks on the integrity of not only Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, but also on the integrity of the criminal justice system as a whole. And yet there seems to be no way to hold him to account. Is this a gross failure of the system?
Well, I think firstly, this is something that's not new. Mr. Zuma has been criticizing the legal system for many, many years now as part of his campaign to evade charges on fraud and corruption, which he is finally facing now in relation to the arms deal. But we live in a democracy where people have freedom of speech, and it is open to people to criticize the courts, to criticize judgments. But it's when those criticisms become personal, as they have done in the case of Mr. Zuma's remarks in relation to Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, that they are unacceptable in a democracy. That a democracy is premised on the integrity of the judiciary, and certainly if there is evidence of wrongdoing by members of the judiciary, then these need to be brought to the fore. But simply to cast aspersions on the integrity of people without sufficient basis cannot be acceptable.
What course of action is open to Deputy Chief Justice Zondo, given that those comments or the defence by former President Jacob Zuma has targeted him personally?
Well, I think most right-thinking people in South Africa take it with a pinch of salt, see it from whence it comes, that this is a very desperate Mr. Zuma that is seeking to evade accountability for his role in state capture. And he will use any means or any trick at his disposal to try and avoid that. So I don't think, people generally take that seriously. The Deputy Chief Justice, to his credit, dealt with in detail all of the allegations that Mr. Zuma has made when the Deputy Chief Justice ruled on the recusal application that was brought by Mr. Zuma at the Commission of Inquiry in November. Mr. Zuma is taking that matter on appeal, and that is something that will be resolved in the courts. Now, if Mr. Zuma has no faith in the legal system and legal process, one would ask, why is it that he's even bothering to take that recusal decision on appeal if he believes that the courts are biased against him? So he seems to be quite willing to use the courts when it suits his purposes.
What's the likely outcome of criminal charges now laid by the Commission against Zuma for defying that summons to appear?
Well, as we know from the statement of the State Capture Commission earlier this week, that charges were laid following Mr. Zuma's walkout in November last year in terms of the Commission's Act. A further charge under the same Act was laid in respect of Mr. Zuma's failure to appear before the Commission last month. And should he fail to appear again on the 15th of February, as he has been summoned to do, a third charge under the Commissions Act will follow, and each of those carries the possibility of a term of imprisonment of 6 months. And Mr. Zuma has no basis to show cause why he has not responded to those summons and subpoenas. And furthermore, as a result of last week's Constitutional Court judgment, it is also open to the Commission of Inquiry to pursue contempt of court proceedings against Mr. Zuma for his disregard of the order of the Constitutional Court.
An ordinary South Africa who has a criminal charge laid against them would probably be arrested very shortly, spend at least one night in jail depending on their access to legal services, and spend many days, if not months, in court trying to defend such a charge. However, Mr. Zuma seems to very effectively evade the kind of consequences that a criminal charge should hold with it.
Well, you know, that happens in some circumstances. The normal process is for a person to be, for a charge to be laid, an investigation to be conducted, and if formal charges are brought by the National Prosecuting Authority, then a court date is set, and the accused person is required to present themselves at court on that day. In some cases, people would be arrested and not granted bail, be held in custody pending that hearing. In this case, that's unlikely to be the case. But if Mr. Zuma is charged and fails to appear in court, then a warrant for his arrest can then be issued.
Thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us. That was Lawson Naidoo from the Council for Advancement of the South African Constitution.